In Mounce chapter 29, we meet the adjectival participles. Adjectival participles. So 27 and 28 have been devoted to adverbial participles. But I mentioned before, my little mantra, right, that participles are verbal adjectives. So there's an adjectival side of participles as well. So let's just think about what we have here. And this is review. We talked about this when we introduced participles in chapters 26 and 27. But participles are verbal adjectives, and so they have verbal characteristics. The verbal side, it means that they can be marked in Greek for things that verbs can be marked for. You have to choose a tense stem when you're choosing participle, right? And that's a verbal issue, and that's going to communicate aspect. They'll be marked for voice, so whoever the participle describes, if it's active, middle, that they're doing the action. If it's passive, being acted upon. Also, participles can take their own modifiers and objects and prepositional phrases. So that's the verbal side. The adjectival characteristics. Adjectives are marked for case, gender, number, and so are participles. And then they can function the way adjectives function. That is, they can be attributive, predicative, or substantival, and so can participles. Participles, because they're verbal adjectives, are describing or modifying something, whether that something is explicit or overt in the sentence, or implicit or covert. I like to think of covert. It makes me think of spies and whatnot. And I grew up during the Cold War, so anyhow, we can simplify matters by thinking in terms of active participles. When a participle is active, whatever it's describing is the agent, the one who's doing the action, secret agent sometimes, right? Or if it's passive, then whoever it's describing is the patient, is the one being acted upon. And we typically will use certain sorts of verbal endings in English to translate those voices. So ing for actives, and the ed, d, or n forms, which are the English past participles. So the biting man, here man is being described by biting. It's active, so the man is doing the biting. The bitten man is a passive participle, so the man's not biting anyone, rather something or someone has bitten the man. Okay, the man is the patient here. Now, adjectives can function just like other adjectives. And so we want to review those three adjectival functions that we learned way back in the first half of our Mounce textbook. What are those three functions? The attributive function. And here I'm using kalos as an adjective. Remember, kalos could be translated as beautiful, but it could also be translated as good. Good. And it's that sense of kalos we'll use when we translate these. So I have ha kalos anthropos. So how would you translate that? Yeah, the good man. Which attributive position is the adjective kalos in here? My noun is anthropos, kalos is my adjective. Which attributive position is this? It's the first attributive position. When we talk of first attributive position, we mean that the adjective is first and then the noun that it modifies. All right? When the noun is articular, then the adjective will have the article in front of it. Okay? The adjective will be articular. Now, in the second example, I have ha anthropos, ha kalos. Say that with me. Excellent. Now, the adjective kalos is after the noun anthropos. So which attributive position is this? It's second. Noun first, attributive adjective second. Notice that the article is still in front of the adjective here. Okay, that is the attributive position. If the noun's definite, then the attributive adjective that's modifying it will be articular with it. Okay? So how am I going to translate this? I'm going to translate it the same way. Literally, the man, the good, is the good man. And ha kalos anthropos, the good man. All right? So these are my attributive functions. Now let's look at the second type of use of adjectives in Greek. That's the predicative function. And notice here the predicate position for the adjective. And I'm using the same words just different grammatical positions. Say this with me, ha anthropos kalos. So here my noun anthropos is articular. My adjective kalos, good, agrees with that noun, right? It's nominative singular masculine, but it is not articular. So it is not attributive. It is predicative. And when I have a predicate adjective, what is implied here? A copula. There is a verb to be implied here. The man is kalos. Good. All right. Now the second example is kalos ha anthropos. Kalos ha anthropos. Adjective is first, and ha anthropos is the noun that's second. Notice that the adjective is still lacking the article, right? And this again is predicate position. If I have a definite noun, an articular noun, and an adjective that matches it in case, gender, number, and it's nominative, but it doesn't have the article in front of it, then it is a predicate position. And how can I translate this? If I keep the word order, good is the man, and that means the same thing as the man is good, right? Good is the man, or the man is good. So both of these mean the same thing. Now all I've done in these next two examples is I've given you the exact sentences as the first two, but I've actually made the copula overt. I've added Amy in the present tense. Since ha anthropos is the subject, I'm using the third singular form of the present tense of Amy. So everybody say that with me. Ha anthropos estin kalos. And that means the man is good. Exactly. So the same rendering here for both of these, right? And then for this last one, everyone, kalos estin ha anthropos. All right. So this is good is the man. All right, which is another predicate use. In all of these cases, there are no articles in front of the adjective. Now, this is, you can tell the difference between predicate and attributive position when the noun is articular, okay? If the noun is indefinite and anarthrous, no article, then it becomes formally ambiguous and you can't tell, okay? So let me just jot down one example here. If you see anthropos kalos, that could be a couple of different things, right? This could be a man, a good, and that would be a good man. That would be what use? It's attributive. Remember, attributive adjectives tell you what kind of noun. A good man. Or this could be a man is kalos, is good, in which case that would be the predicative use. And predicate adjectives are telling you what the noun is, right? You're always making a copular assertion about the man or whatever the subject noun is. Okay? So when the noun is anarthrous, then you can't tell the difference between predicate and attributive position. It's only when the noun's articular, then we can tell. Now look at C here. The substantival use of the adjective is when we have a function where this adjective is doing the work of a noun. That is to say, there's no noun that it agrees with in case, gender, and number. It is the noun for all intents and purposes. So, for the first example, say this with me. Ha kalos agapa ton anthropon. Okay. So, what case is ha kalos? Nominative. And the ha tells me it's masculine singular, right? What nominative masculine singular noun does this adjective agree with and match here? There isn't one, okay? Because it is functioning as the noun. So how am I going to translate this? Yeah, the good man or the good one. But whoever the one is a masculine one, right? So the good man, agapa, what's that? Loves. Good. And then ton anthropon. So the good one loves the man. Okay, so my accusative masculine singular form over here indicates the direct object, right? So what noun function does hakalas play? It's the subject of the verb, isn't it? And that's what substantival adjectives do. They function like nouns. They do the work of a noun. And nouns are subjects frequently. Okay, the second example is ha anthropos ha paneras. Say that. Ekbale tan kalan. So what is ha anthropos ha paneras? That's right, the bad man. The bad man, ekbale, throws out, and tan kalan, the good, what? The good one, the good man, the good dude. Okay, any of those are possible. Why am I going with man, one, or dude? Because tan kalan is, it's masculine singular and what case? Accusative. Is there another accusative masculine singular noun that this adjective agrees with? It is an adjective, right? Yeah, it's substantival. So it's functioning how? It's filling the noun role of direct object, okay? It's what is thrown out. All right. Now, although Mounce doesn't mention it, adjectival participles can function in all three of the same ways that the regular adjectives can. Mounce only gives you two ways. He gives you the attributive use and the substantival use. But technically, participles can also function as predicate participles. And so I'm going to survey all three of them because technically they can do all three. All right, so we'll look at the attributive first. And again, I'll put these in first attributive position and second attributive position. So say this with me. Ha anthropos ha legon to achlo estin ha didaskalos mu. So what does ha anthropos mean? The man. What is ha anthropos ha legon? The man. This is not logon of words, but legon. It's a participle, isn't it? Okay. It's literally the man, the saying. Okay. What case gender number is legon? No, it's nominative singular masculine. Okay. It's using the leg stem, so it's present active participle, nominative masculine singular. The article agrees with it, and both of them agree with the case gender number of anthropos, right? So which attributive position is the participle in? It's in second attributive position. So normally I would have ha noun, ha adjective, right? Like ha anthropos, ha kalas. But here I have ha noun, ha participle. That is an adjectival participle. It's functioning as an attributive adjective. So the man, the saying, is the saying man or the speaking man. Now look at to achlo. What case is that? That's dative, right? Why? Because it's the one to whom the speaking is directed. So the man, the speaking to the crowd could be translated as the speaking to the crowd man. Well, that doesn't sound very good, does it? So you could translate it as the man speaking to the crowd, or you can use a relative clause, the man who is speaking to the crowd. Estin is. So this whole thing, ha anthropos ha legon to achlo, that whole thing is the subject. And that subject is ha didaskalasmu. Is who? Is my teacher. Okay? So ha anthropos ha legon to achlo is the man who is speaking to the crowd is my teacher. Basically, when we have an attributive participle that has its own modifiers, objects, and things like that, we are best served by translating it with a relative clause and using who, which, or that. Okay? Otherwise, it just gets too bulky. I was mentioning to another class today that in Galatians 3, Paul talks about the law which came after 430 years. That's actually an attributive participle. It's literally the coming after 430 years law. But most of our English translations will use a relative clause. The law which came after 430 years. Okay? All right. Look at the second one. I have ha legon, say this with me, ha legon to achlo anthropos esten ha didaskalasmu. All right. So something or someone is my teacher. Same, basically the same sentence. But notice here I have ha legon anthropos. All of these are nominative, singular, masculine. The speaking man. The speaking man. The dative noun is relative to the participle. The speaking to the crowd man is my teacher. Which attributive use of the participle is this position in? It's first, right? It comes before the noun that it modifies and agrees with in case, gender, and number. But that's what attributive participles will do. They will accompany a noun. They will agree with that noun in case, gender, and number. And it will translate it the same way. Okay? Now, the second use is the predicative use. Notice the predicate position for the participle. Say this with me. Ha anthropos esten legon to achlo. So, what is ha anthropos? The man. What function does it have? It's nominative, isn't it? So it's the subject. Esten is my verb, and it's a copular verb, isn't it? The man is, and look at my participle here. The noun, ha anthropos, is articular, isn't it? Legon is not. So that is a predicate use of the participle. And what case, gender, and number is it? Nominative, singular, masculine, right? Why? Because the subject is masculine singular, and in copular constructions, the subject is nominative and the predicate is nominative. So, the man is speaking to achlo, to the crowd. Now, on the second example under the predicative use, we basically have the exact same form of sentence, except instead of the present of a me, I'm using the imperfect, okay? So, ha anthropos was legon to achlo. So how would you translate that? Yeah, the man was speaking to the crowd, okay? So the form of the copula could change from present to past, but notice that the progressive nature of the present stem participle remains, and it gives you that ongoing flavor, okay? All right. Now, the last section, the C section, is the substantival use. The substantival use. And notice here that in these examples, we have a participle, which is a verbal adjective, but no noun that the participle agrees with in case, gender, and number. Okay? And that's because the participle is functioning as the noun itself. So, say this with me. Ha legon to achlo esten ha didaskalasmu. Okay, so ha legon. Remember, this is nominative, singular, masculine. The speaking to the crowd is my teacher. That doesn't make any sense, does it? The speaking to the crowd is my teacher. The reason is that what I'm missing is a noun, right? I would normally want to see a noun here. Since the noun is not here, then the participle is functioning substantively. The speaking to the crowd one is my teacher, or the one speaking to the crowd. There's actually a number of ways to translate this. So let's walk through them real quickly. Okay, so the speaking to the crowd one is my teacher. The one speaking to the crowd is my teacher. What's another way to translate this substantival participle? Yeah, I could say the man speaking to the crowd. The one who is, that's good. And then I could have a couple other options. How about he who is speaking? That's possible. He who is speaking to the crowd is my teacher. All right. So there's several possibilities, many of them incorporating a relative clause. Okay. So don't neglect that possibility. Now look at the second example. I have ha anthropos ha paneras. What does that mean? The bad man, ekbale, throws out ton legonta to achlo. Yes, he throws out the speaking to the crowd, where it's the direct object, right? Ha legon is my subject. Here, it's the direct object. How will I translate this? The speaking to the crowd one, or throws out the one speaking to the crowd, or throws out the one who is speaking to the crowd, or throws out him who is speaking to the crowd. So you see how we can do that.